You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to In Your Element, the podcast that unlocks practical wisdom in higher education, where leadership meets real talk. I'm Brendan Hinkle, Manager of Solutions Engineering here at Element 451.
And I'm Daniela Norden, Element 451's Director of Customer Success and Engagement. Join us every other Thursday for discussions with everyday heroes using Element 451 in enrollment, marketing, and student success. We'll unlock the practical tips to help you make waves on your campus.
In Your Element is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to In Your Element. Brendan and I are super excited. I always feel like we start with I'm super excited, but Brendan's excited about this one too.
Me too. I'm really excited. I feel like we're actually going to steal some of Artis's thunder with the episode today.
Absolutely,
for our first
we
really
are.
AI heavy episode. So watch out, Artis. We're coming for your job.
We're coming. But actually, you can keep it, Artist. Brendan will come for it, but I'll stay where I am. But we're so excited to welcome Claire Skelton, Assistant Director of Content Marketing at SEMO, Southeast Missouri State University. Claire, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to In Your Element.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you all.
This is awesome. We're going to jump right into it because you guys are power users of our AI assistants, our Bolt suite. When we met a couple weeks ago to kind of talk about what this episode would look like, you really shared some insights and some strategy around how SEMO built out your assistants. Let's start there. What was that strategy? You talked about different student populations. Why did you decide to go this route? Maybe craft that story for everybody who's listening.
What had happened is I guess it was last summer, we rolled out our Sadie Bolt bot, and she was on the majority of our SEMO.edu website for all of our students. The biggest thing Sadie, our AI assistant, ran into was she would get a little confused when talking to different types of students because we have a new first time, we have online students, we have grad students, we have international students. And each of those application processes, financial aid, those are different answers. And so Sadie would be pulling different insights from the knowledge base and was getting slightly confused. Our technology coordinator, Cody, had the great idea of what if we could make these teams specific to each of the student type. So on our online page, we have our online Bolt team, which is comprised of an admissions counselor specific to online, a campus life specific to online, but also a financial aid specific to online, since those bolts would then be connected to those links on the online webpage.
I think that's so smart and so strategic. We too group our assistants as teams. So thinking about which assistants you want answering which questions. How did you identify it was the online program, for example, a priority for y'all? Or how did you identify a pilot? I think a lot of times partners are like, where do we even start? And how do we begin to think about this?
So, when choosing what teams to make for our both assistants, we decided to lead with our international and online because those are specific areas we're trying to grow right now. And we had found that our international page on our SEMO.edu for our international population had a lot of really great information, but it definitely was completely different than what we would want a new first time student to be hearing. And so we have these students that we're monitoring Sadie at our front desk in our admissions department, and they were noticing the online and international was the bigger two issues that Sadie was getting confused on.
That's wild. So I love one of the things I love about SEMO, and I'm just going to say this is kind of like what Daniela was saying at the beginning. You guys are power users, and I actually want to just kind of ask a question based off of what we've already been talking about and how you guys have just kind of number one, you dove into using BoltBot just one, right? Sadie deployed for everything. And you were like, you know what, let's use this. Let's see what it can do for us. And you're like, well, it's working well, but this is where it's falling short. And this is how we can change that. But I want to pause there and just ask a question. What in the world is the mindset of your team over there to where, because there's so much apprehension around AI in general, to where you guys, when this came out, you were like, you know what? We're doing this and this is the direction we're going. I think that's important for the listener to hear because, we're hearing a lot of progress and a lot of like jumping right in, but what's the mindset on campus of you all for kind of just adopting this and continuing to try to move forward?
Actually, great question, Brendan. I was a little hesitant to speak on this because, there are flaws with each things as this is a new technology that we're bringing to our students. But one thing we have noticed about Sadie and our assistants is they're not ever wrong. They just are not informed or giving the right specific answer. And I think your custom answers help alleviate that. I think we have these great students that work in our admissions department that are constantly monitoring Sadie. And truly, there's not that many handovers to the conversations. It looks like since August 2024 to now, which I guess that's over like 4 months. That's less than 200 conversations that have handed off from a Bolt assistant to a human user.
Wow.
So that's great stats to show that, sure, there are small flaws and we could be hesitant, but I think everybody kind of is looking at I think we all, when we use Bolt assistants on any sort of website, we do give them a little grace because we do know that this is new, but it is essential to meeting those students where they are in that time. And I don't think it's ever making the student not choose CMO because they might have had a not specifically correct answer to the question, but I think that they do appreciate that we do have these services to meet them. And we already do see then what they were asking, when it was, and then we can have an admissions counselor reach out to them and say, hey, I saw that you had a question about financial aid on this
Yeah.
specific issue. I would love to discuss this further.
Yeah.
It's just makes such a difference. I was talking to a partner the other day who was talking about their process of analyzing form submissions for comments and questions, assigning it to a student worker to get back. And I said, y'all, this is what our assistants like do, you know? And they were like, oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense. I think your point, Claire, too, about the knowledge gap not ever being wrong, you can analyze those. We have the tools in Element that say, okay, maybe this wasn't the exact answer that I want. You can constantly be tweaking and iterating. So smart, this whole approach. You mentioned the knowledge base, you mentioned sources, one of my favorite features because it doesn't just apply to the assistants, right? It helps you write campaigns, it helps answer student questions. You can have like an internal knowledge base. You shared some examples previously about the way Staff Assistant helped you generate some content and contents for campaigns. Can you share those examples now?
I think this is a great feature that is found on Element 451, especially with a lot of our newer staff members. We are thankfully expanding in a lot of our marketing, international, online. So there are a lot of hands in our CRM. So I think having this knowledge base when they get to use the Copilot, they will know the specific answers that we've already connected for the population to receive from our website. We want everything to be a cohesive voice. And so I think having this co-pilot is just essential with keeping everybody singing the same tune when we're speaking to these students.
So I've got to ask this because, you had like the best teacher on campaign building co-pilots during Engage Summit. I don't remember what his name was, but we had a really good workshop. What all from this, have you guys been able to take from, because you're very engaged in Rollify podcasts. You're very engaged in the things that we put out. Again, the workshop that you and the team attended. What all have you taken away from that as you've used AI for things like building campaigns? Yes, for consistency of information, but also like anything that you guys have pulled away from using them for campaign building specifically that has been revolutionary compared to what you were doing.
I think that just constantly reassessing where we're at and trying to make sure we're using the best features. It's okay to reinvent the wheel and not be stuck in what we've been doing for years and years. I love that Element has been able to bring so many great features, and they really do lean into AI when bringing personalization to these students. I've really feel like I've leaned into listening to a lot of podcasts, and our whole Marcon team have felt empowered by what we've received from Element. One of the things that why I'm so thankful to be working with Element is because I know who is bringing these features to the forefront because I listened to the podcast. I was there at Engage Summit. So I know that, Meredith has been really hands-on with the AI assistants. And when we were rolling out these bots, I was a little hesitant with the knowledge base and what I think how it should be lined up. And she was so kind and checking how I had connected the knowledge base to each of the specific assistants. And what I had assumed was the more the merrier. Let's put as many links to these assistants as possible. But she changed the way I was thinking about it and told me you need to be specific with the links that you're giving to each of the team members, or else it will lead to more and more confusion. And that's what I think the main thing that I have learned from assistants is you need to be very specific if you want to have a specific answer to the student for them.
So, one of the things that, speaking of Engage Summit, I feel like keeps coming up. Oh my gosh, I forget who said it from Forsyth. Hannah from Forsyth said, "Be bossy with your AI," right?
This is what I actually tell my team when talking to AI is you have to be specifically bossy when you're prompting. Be as direct as possible. Explain the whole problem. This is somebody imagine them as like an intern, but be specifically bossy with that intern and get it moving.
Right. Because it's, you have, not that you want to be bossy to people in real life, but you talk to it like you would talk to someone, like a person that you're managing. Like, you're not going to sit there to a person you're managing and be like, I want a campaign for students right now that talks about this. And then it gives you this broad, vague mess. And you're like, well, this isn't exactly what I was thinking. Well, you didn't tell it exactly what you were thinking. Right. So what you're thinking, the output you want to be in your head, give it all of it, right? And then you're able to see these incredible results in timing that is now minutes, as opposed to something that you would have a person or a team put together in days, right? And that's the value, right? That's where the value lives.
I think the biggest misconception with AI and prompting is people don't realize it's a conversation. You're not just going to say one prompt to them and they're going to give you the most amazing answer. You have to say, now take that line out. I want to make sure to highlight this. You have to, when I'm prompting, I it's probably 5 or 4 different things I'm saying back to them before I finally have my finished product, which is then edited a little more to take out adjectives and all the different aloof language. We had an email. It's the third communication for an event that we're putting out that we're not at the capacity that we'd hoped to be. So for this last and final email, it says, this is your last chance, XYZ, the normal lingo that happens. And then I remembered I got an email from Ashley Budd earlier where she has put out that Chat GPT for Mailed It. And I took that email and I put it in there and I said, I want you to read this email and give me great tactics from that I could maybe help push people to want to join this. Then I made sure after it gave me one email, it gave me a prompt. I said, this is great. I would like to really highlight that these are going to be one-on-one sessions. We really want them to register, and we're going to be going to their county to speak to them instead of being in Cape Girardeau. And it just kept shifting and arranging till it was finally the message that it gave me an awesome subject line in a preview text where I was able to, it was tactics I just didn't even realize, but it's through prompting that you're able to pull this out.
I love that.
I love that too. I love the cross-Enrollify creators too. I was holding up a bookmark that said "Mailed It." That's what Claire got excited about. This reminds me that you talking about prompting and sort of iterating. You can use that same approach to your knowledge base. It feels like when you were talking about custom answers, or when you were talking about, we're constantly feeding it. It's not wrong. It's what you give it. Like, it's that same philosophy that I think people will sometimes give up too quickly, but looking at it as a conversation or as like an intern, I think is super helpful. I will say, while I agree with you guys for being bossy, I always thank my AI because you never know. You never know. You never
Yeah.
know.
Being bossy, you can still throw in at the end, thanks, but you still got to be bossy. They got to know, but they also got to know who wears, who's wearing the pants in the relationship. The AI is not your boss, Daniela. You're the boss of the AI.
It's the Midwesterner in me. And I got to say, please, I got to say, thank you. You never know what's going to happen though. But that's like a personal touch. And I'm wondering, Claire, like how do you still stay personal? Like you mentioned following up, or you're using AI to do a lot of this. How does it still feel like it's coming from humans, or how does it still remain personal? Or what are the things you're doing in your follow-up maybe that gives that personalization to those students you're talking to?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways that we have found great success is with like a dynamic email out to these students where we're sending them the information, but it's from their admission counselors from that specific segment. So you'll see in the inbox, it'll say, I'll give an example, Iona McCurdy, who is one of our admissions heads, then has emailed this student to say, hey, I've seen that you've had an issue with applying or something like that. And that's more likely to be clickable to the prospective student. And what's great is the return address is Iana. So then the conversation has begun and they get to have this conversation where we've seen that there is an issue. Something that I really love that is another great way to be personalized is you're able to categorize the type of student, like how often they open your messages. So we like to have a lurker message that will go out to our
I like
lurker
that.
student type.
Does it say like, we see you lurking right now?
Stop lurking. Stop lurking in your lurkum. Yeah.
We don't specifically call them lurkers in the email, but we
You
do
might want to
say,
try it. Do some A/B testing, with that. See if it gets any traction. I think, might be onto something here.
to be honest, I would click on an email if an email was calling me a lurker.
Right?
Yep.
Right?
This is what
They're on our website. Why aren't you clicking through?
what's going to make you click. Honestly, the engagement score is one of my favorite and most underutilized features in Element. The fact that you guys are using it just makes my heart explode. Like, we do the hard work for you. We're literally analyzing who's opening emails, how often, like what they're engaging in, and people are like, oh wait, that's a thing that exists, and I'm like, yes, and it works. You should use it.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize, like, the conversation's happening right now. You're not behind or, like, have missed the boat. Innovations with AI are constantly happening, and the more that you're talking about it and the more that you're asking the questions, the more informed you're gonna be on the subject. Like, we're still figuring out our AI assistants, but they're doing so good, and we're so proud of the work that they've put in, and we're constantly saying they're doing their best, and they're making those connections, and it's starting those conversations with students where we wouldn't realize when they are having these queries.
So I have to ask, have you heard through the grapevine some of the possible releases we may be having with real-time phone calling with AI assistants? I knew it had seeped into SEMO territory, so I didn't know if you'd heard through the grapevine anything yet.
We've heard a phone call, and it was really impressive. I think that this is going to be great with meeting those students. One of the biggest things that I was lucky enough to be on a focus group last year, and we talked to students about what their biggest hangup is with the college process. And their number one thing is they don't know the questions to ask. So they're afraid to reach out to an admissions counselor to seem like they don't know or like might be
Judged, fear of judgment, things like that. Yeah.
and I think that's a huge misconception because the admissions counselors are there to support you and to help you through this process. So then to have these text messages, phone calls to meet these students who are a little more hesitant, they would probably be more apt to answer a phone call that would be not from a person, but to give them prompts on different ideas that they could ask about or what might be on their mind.
Yeah, 100%.
I actually love this voice feature, so I'll have to tell you guys a story. I was at the North Carolina Systems Conference, and Artis was there, and we did like a live demo, like we at the end of a session that I was presenting, and we had the phone like held up to the microphone. So essentially, our partners will get a phone number. It's a phone voice assistant. Students can call, and it will walk you through like what's the application deadline, and the assistant will like answer. So just explaining for the listener out there to kind of get the sense of what's coming, and really, to Claire's point, being able to meet those students at the different places that they are. It's also great for accessibility. Like, if you got students who can't type or who have, visual impairments, like being able to have that voice feature is a game changer for those students.
Yeah. And one of the other things that it's going to be able to do, and this is just wild to me, is it's going to be able to call out to students too, right? Like having them proactively reach out and listen. Don't get me wrong. I know, I understand. I'm not answering my phone if it's not in my contact list either. But this is where you can kind of develop those strategies of everyone's different, right? And so if you know a demographic, you guys are tracking with personas. You can look at their activity. You can see, what are they, more inclined to do from an engagement perspective, and take that group and they can be in an outbound phone call situation where you see these things. And so it's just crazy to see where we're going, the scalability of what the future can hold, and what AI is going to be able to do for campuses. So I had to ask. I knew Linnell. I knew there was a SEMO phone number. I knew Linnell had one. I didn't know how much you knew about it. So I
Of
had to
course,
ask.
we'll know.
Shameless plug for Linnell's episode too, because we had her on talking about direct admissions, and everybody should listen to that one. That was a good episode too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Love that episode.
So one of the things that we like to do sometimes here, now I'm part of, listener, you probably don't know this, but I work on the data and integrations team here at Element 451. And so sometimes I like to get a little nerdy. So you kind of already gave a little bit of information on some numbers with how many times it's had to be handed off to a person. But is there any other numbers that you've seen as you have continued to implement AI of where it's made a difference for you all at SEMO?
Wow. I mean, I love going into insights in Element. It's so impressive to see just how active these students are whenever they do have interest in their college search. It looks like we have 65,000 human minutes saved from August to today, which again, that's only 3 months. And to know how fatigued all of our admissions, it's apply season. I couldn't be more impressed with how these assistants have been able to help us out.
I don't remember if we were interviewing someone on here, Danielle. If we were, you may be able to pull it out and remember what I'm about to reference. But they were talking about the time that it took for them when it was busy season, right? And how long it took them to maybe process applications or something. I would think it was CWI with Luis whenever I was talking to him. And essentially he was saying, what we've been able to do is we've been able to take response time for messages because of the tools that we're using in Element. And before, they would have to spend the next couple of days responding to messages. And now they were able to get it to where they could get back to everything within 24 hours, not 24 to 48. And the goal next year is to get it down to within the same day. And so these are the things that people, I think they don't realize, right? Because it's one of those things where it becomes life where you're like, oh, well, we have so many questions. We're doing all this. It's going to take us a couple days to catch up and respond. But whenever you're able to deploy something like this and you're still busy because you have other things, you always have something else to do. That's why these AI assistants are so powerful, because you're still going to have so much you as a person have to do. But then you realize you're like, holy crap, last year I was stuck at this desk answering emails and answering calls for hours on end, these questions, and now I don't have to do that. And I think that that's kind of the aha moment that people have whenever they use this, because sometimes it's not so obvious because you're still busy. You're like, I thought this was supposed to save me time. I'm still busy. But you're like, oh, it is. Now I'm just able to do other things that I wasn't able to do before.
You're able to delegate it out.
Yeah.
Send it to those bots. I could see another benefit also is seeing these Bolt bots, if they have the same query to them multiple times in a row. Maybe that's something that we need to alleviate on our website and to give the answers more upfront instead of having. We can see that there's an issue on our website if they're asking numerous questions on one specific topic.
Yeah, it's so smart to use it that way, I think. Yeah. This has been awesome, Claire. Thank you so much. It's just kind of fun to talk AI. I know Brendan and I kind of geek out about it. Everybody at Element actually kind of geeks out about it, but it's so nice to have somebody to really explore and talk about how you're using it. We've got one last question for you. It's the way we close out every episode. And we want to know, Brendan and I want to know desperately, when are you in your element?
I need to know. Tell me.
We need to know.
Here lately, I've been in my element. Our SEMO football team has been having an awesome season, and we have a brand new stadium. And
Love
to be
that.
able to SEMO with the whole stadium, it makes me so proud, and I'm so in my element then.
Fall football vibes for the win.
Such a Midwestern thing to say, like such a Missouri, like Midwestern. I love it. Oh, I love it. I don't know any other, I can't say touchdown. I don't know any other analogies. The
Sports
Buckeye would be a
balls.
sports ball. The Buckeyes would be so upset with me right now, but yeah. I'll get
Oh,
AI to
my
write me
goodness.
something, a slogan.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh my
I
gosh.
love that.
Thanks so much, Claire. This was awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Claire.
you so much for your time. I really do appreciate getting to talk to you both, and thanks so much.
In Your Element is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and enrollment professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Artis Kadu, Maya Demishkovich, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.